I'm Darren, 38, a single dad raising my 9-year-old daughter Lily after my divorce 3 years ago. What should have been a joyful Christmas dinner turned into the final straw when my mother forgot to set a plate for Lily, claiming there wasn't enough food because she had upset the golden grandchild. Years of watching my daughter being treated as less than were about to end, and I'd finally had enough. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I finally stood up for my daughter against years of family favoritism. To understand what happened that Christmas, you need to know about my family dynamics. Growing up, it was always clear that my younger brother Andrew was my mother's favorite. While most parents try to hide their preferences, my mother never bothered with such pretense. Andrew received the newest toys, the most attention, and endless praise, while I was expected to be the responsible one who shouldn't need validation. When Andrew struggled in school, my mother hired tutors and blamed the teachers. When I made honor roll, it was simply expected. When Andrew made the junior varsity basketball team after 3 attempts, my mother threw a party. When I was selected as captain of the debate team, she merely nodded and asked if I'd taken out the trash. These patterns weren't subtle or occasional. They formed the foundation of our family structure. My father, Thomas, a kind but conflict-avoidant man, would sometimes try to balance things by spending extra time with me, teaching me to fish or work on cars. These moments were precious, but they were always secretive, as if we both knew my mother would disapprove of this special attention. Despite this challenging upbringing, I managed to build a good life. I met Emma during my sophomore year of college. She was brilliant, ambitious, and saw me in a way my mother never had. After graduation, we married and settled in a small house just 30 minutes from my parents. I'd become a project manager at a construction company, and Emma worked as a marketing executive. When we announced our pregnancy, my mother's response was lukewarm at best. She asked practical questions about our financial situation and whether we'd thought this through, a stark contrast to the joy she'd expressed when Andrew announced his wife Jessica was pregnant 3 years later. Lily was born on a beautiful spring morning, a tiny bundle with my dark hair and Emma's blue eyes. The first time I held her, I made a silent promise that she would always know how loved and valued she was. For a while, my mother seemed to embrace her role as grandmother, though her visits were infrequent and brief compared to the time she spent with Andrew's family. Everything shifted dramatically when Andrew's son Tyler was born. My mother transformed into a doting grandmother overnight. She babysat twice weekly, created a dedicated nursery in her home, and shared daily photos of her special boy on social media. The contrast with how she treated Lily was impossible to ignore. While Tyler received custom birthday parties with professional entertainers, Lily was lucky to get a store-bought cake and a card that sometimes misspelled her name. Emma noticed the discrepancy immediately and urged me to address it. But years of conditioning had taught me to accept my mother's behavior as unchangeable. I made excuses. My mother was from a different generation. She didn't mean anything by it. Andrew's family lived closer by a mere 15 minutes. Deep down, I feared confrontation would only make things worse. Emma and I divorced when Lily was 6, not because of my family issues, but because we had grown in different directions. Emma's career required extensive international travel, and over time we became more like friendly co-parents than romantic partners. Our separation was amicable. We both wanted what was best for Lily. Due to Emma's travel schedule, I received primary custody, with Emma taking Lily during school breaks when possible. Throughout all this change, Lily remained an incredibly sweet and perceptive child. She loved art, spent hours creating intricate drawings, and had her mother's sharp wit. She was also sensitive, she noticed, when her grandmother would fawn over Tyler while barely acknowledging her achievements. After visits with my parents, she'd ask innocent but heartbreaking questions. Why doesn't Grandma have any pictures of me on her refrigerator? Or, does Grandma love Tyler more because he's a boy? I tried to shield Lily from the worst of it, explaining that Grandma showed love differently to different people. But children are remarkably perceptive. By age 8, Lily had started declining invitations to my parents' house, developing mysterious stomach aches or suddenly remembering important homework. I knew I should have taken a stronger stand, but years of conditioning made me hesitant to rock the boat. There were countless small incidents that I let slide. The time my mother forgot to invite Lily to Tyler's birthday despite inviting several other family members. The dance recital my parents missed because Tyler had a t-ball game the same day. The Christmas gifts, Tyler receiving the latest gaming system while Lily got discount store coloring books. Each time I swallowed my anger, made excuses, and tried to compensate for my mother's behavior with extra love and attention. But everyone has a breaking point. Mine was about to arrive. Christmas at my parents' house had been an annual tradition since long before Lily was born. My mother prided herself on hosting elaborate holiday gatherings, transforming their suburban home into something worthy of a magazine spread. Despite the tension and favoritism, I continued participating in these celebrations partly out of habit and partly from a lingering hope that things might improve. This particular December, I was cautiously optimistic. My father had called personally to invite us unusual, as these invitations typically came through my mother's group texts. During our conversation, he'd mentioned looking forward to seeing Lily and asked about her recent art competition. This small acknowledgement gave me hope that perhaps my parents were finally recognizing what they'd been missing in their relationship with their granddaughter. Lily and I approached our Christmas shopping with particular care that year. For my father, we selected a vintage fishing lure to add to his collection. For my mother, Lily had insisted on a hand-painted silk scarf from a local artisan grandma. Likes pretty things, she'd explained with an earnestness that broke my heart. For Tyler, we chose a dinosaur construction kit that Lily thought was really cool, and for Andrew and Jessica, matching gourmet coffee sets, since they'd recently become coffee enthusiasts. The morning before Christmas Eve, Lily spent hours creating handmade cards for everyone, her small fingers carefully controlling the colored pencils as she drew personalized images for each family member. For my father, a man fishing by a lake. For my mother, a vase filled with her favorite roses. She even made a special dinosaur drawing to include with Tyler's gift. Watching her pour such love and effort into these creations for people who had consistently undervalued her made my chest ache. "Do you think Grandma will put my card on the refrigerator this time?" she asked, looking up from her work with hopeful blue eyes. "I think it's so beautiful she might frame it," I answered, knowing even as I spoke that my mother would likely tuck it away in a drawer, while Tyler's scribbled creation would be prominently displayed. 3 days before Christmas, my mother sent her annual reminder text about dinner details. The message was addressed to family, but primarily contained information about Tyler's favorite dishes that would be served, and a reminder that he was going through a picky phase, so everyone should be extra supportive. She mentioned a special chocolate peppermint cake being prepared for Tyler since he'd recently decided it was his absolute favorite. There was no mention of Lily's preferences or dietary needs, despite her well-known allergy to strawberries. I considered canceling right then. We could spend Christmas at home, or accept the invitation from my coworker Barbara to join her family's celebration. But something held me back, that persistent, irrational hope that this time would be different. Plus, Lily had been working on her grandmother's gift for weeks. I couldn't bear to disappoint her. "Are you excited about Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa's?" I asked Lily the evening before, as she tried on her new holiday dress, a green velvet, with a red sash that she'd selected herself. "I guess so," she said, twirling experimentally before the mirror. "I really want to give Grandma my present, and maybe Tyler will let me play with his new toys." The cautious optimism in her voice strengthened my resolve. I would make this work. I would shield her from any negativity and ensure she enjoyed the holiday. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, with just enough snow on the ground to make everything look appropriately festive. Lily woke early, her excitement about the day evident in her rushed breakfast and careful attention to her appearance. She wore her special dress, asked me to braid her hair like Mom does, and insisted on wearing the tiny silver locket Emma had sent from her business trip in Europe. During the 30-minute drive to my parents' suburban home, Lily chattered about school, her friends, and her hopes for the coming year. The closer we got to my parents' house, the more her conversation turned to questions about family. Will Uncle Andrew be nice today? Last time he told me to stop talking so much. I'm sure everyone will be on their best behavior for Christmas, I assured her, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. Do you think Tyler will like the dinosaur kit Jessica at school says boys don't like presents from girls? Tyler will love it, I said, silently hoping her cousin would show at least basic gratitude. Will Grandma have the special cookies, the ones with the white chocolate? I hadn't seen those mentioned in any of the food planning texts, but I nodded anyway. I'm sure she'll have all sorts of delicious things. As we pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself for whatever lay ahead. The house was impeccably decorated with professional-grade lighting, outlining the roof and windows. A towering inflatable snowman dominated the front lawn, and a sign reading Tyler's Winter Wonderland hung on the front door. No mention of Lily, of course. My father opened the door before we could knock his face, breaking into a genuine smile at the sight of his granddaughter. "There's my lily pad," he exclaimed, using a nickname from her toddler years. He knelt to accept her enthusiastic hug, then stood to give me a quick embrace. "Glad you made it. Traffic wasn't too bad." "Not bad at all," I replied, helping Lily remove her coat and noticing how she carefully smoothed her dress afterward. We followed my father into the living room where my mother was adjusting a massive pile of presents under the 12-foot Christmas tree. She looked up briefly, offering a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you're here. Dinner's almost ready. Andrew and his family just arrived a few minutes ago. They're in the kitchen." No hello. No compliment for Lily's dress. No acknowledgement of the carefully wrapped gifts we carried. My father gave me an apologetic glance before announcing with forced cheerfulness, "Let's go see what everyone's up to in the kitchen." In the gleaming kitchen, my brother Andrew was helping himself to a beer, while his wife Jessica arranged appetizers on a platter. Their son Tyler, now 6 years old, was perched on a special booster seat at the counter playing a handheld game console. "Uncle Darren, look what Santa brought me," Tyler shouted, holding up the expensive device. My mother beamed from her position at the stove, where she was stirring something that smelled of cinnamon and cloves. "That's great, buddy," I replied, guiding Lily forward. "Look who's here to say Merry Christmas." My mother immediately abandoned her cooking to approach Tyler. "Is that too loud, sweetheart? Is your cousin bothering you while you're playing your new game?" Tyler hadn't even acknowledged Lily's presence, but somehow, my mother had already positioned her as an intrusion. I felt Lily's small hand tighten in mine. "Actually, Lily just wanted to say hello and Merry Christmas," I clarified, keeping my voice light despite the tension building in my shoulders. "Hi, Tyler," Lily said softly. "Merry Christmas." Tyler glanced up briefly, then returned to his game without responding. My mother patted his head approvingly. "He's just so engrossed in his new game. Santa knew exactly what to bring my special boy, didn't he?" She finally turned toward Lily, giving her appearance a quick once-over. "Hello, Lily. That's a nice dress. Did your father pick that out?" Before Lily could explain that she'd selected it herself, Tyler shouted that he was hungry, and my mother's attention immediately returned to him. "Dinner will be ready very soon, my love. Grandma made all your favorites." The knot in my stomach tightened as I recognized the familiar pattern, establishing itself within minutes of our arrival. I exchanged a look with Jessica, who seemed uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Andrew was oblivious already on his second beer and discussing football with my father. The evening that would change everything had begun. "Dinner is ready." My mother's announcement came after another 20 minutes of increasingly uncomfortable small talk in the living room. Lily had tried showing Tyler her new sketch pad, a Christmas morning gift from me, but he'd dismissed her attempts at friendship, loudly proclaiming that drawing is boring. We migrated to the dining room where the large oak table had been extended to its full length and dressed with my mother's best linens. The centerpiece was an elaborate arrangement of poinsettias, pine branches, and glittering ornaments. Crystal glasses and the good china were set at each place except one. As everyone began taking seats, I noticed immediately that there were only 5 adult place settings and 1 child's place, with a special Christmas plate and plastic cup. The math didn't add up. 5 adults, my parents, Andrew, Jessica, and myself, 2 children, Tyler and Lily, but only 6 place settings total. My mother directed Tyler to his special seat, which had been elevated with a booster cushion and positioned directly to her right. Andrew sat beside his son with Jessica next to him. My father took his traditional place at the head of the table. I stood awkwardly with Lily, looking at the remaining single-place setting. "Mom," I said carefully, "I think we're missing a place setting." My mother paused in the midst of helping Tyler arrange his napkin in his lap. She glanced around the table with exaggerated confusion before her eyes settled on Lily. "Oh," she said, her voice carrying a note of insincerity that made my skin crawl. "I wasn't sure if Lily would be joining us at the adult table. She usually sits in the kitchen, doesn't she?" This was a complete fabrication. In previous years, both children had sat at the main table. Last Christmas, Lily had been given a regular place setting while Tyler had received special child-friendly dinnerware. "Lily always sits with us," I replied, working to keep my tone neutral despite the anger building inside me. "She's 9 years old." My mother sighed dramatically. "Well, I suppose we can squeeze in another chair. Thomas, can you get the folding chair from the garage? The metal one should fit between Darren and the wall." My father rose immediately, looking embarrassed. "I'll get a proper chair from my office," he said, disappearing down the hallway. While he was gone, my mother began serving the food, an elaborate spread of roast turkey, maple-glazed ham, 3 types of stuffing, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, cranberry sauce, and several dishes, specifically labeled as Tyler's special items. She served Tyler first, giving him generous portions of his favorites, and carefully avoiding anything he disliked. Next came Andrew's plate, equally bountiful, followed by Jessica's. When she reached for my plate, she gave me about half the portions the others had received. My father returned with a proper dining chair, which he positioned at the table, quietly apologizing to Lily as he helped her get settled. When everyone was seated, my mother looked at my father's empty plate and exclaimed, "Oh, I've forgotten to serve you, Thomas." She hurried to fill his plate bountifully. Then she served herself and sat down with a satisfied expression. Everyone began eating except Lily, who sat quietly with her empty place setting. I waited a moment, thinking perhaps my mother had simply forgotten in the confusion. When it became clear she had no intention of serving my daughter, I cleared my throat. "Mom, Lily needs a plate too." My mother took a small sip of wine before responding. "Oh dear, I'm afraid there might not be enough. Tyler might want seconds, and you know how important it is for growing boys to eat well." I stared at her in disbelief. The table was loaded with enough food to feed twice our number. Her excuse was so transparently false that even Andrew looked uncomfortable. "There's plenty of food," I said, firmly reaching for a clean plate from the sidebar. "I'll serve her." Actually, my mother interjected, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "I didn't prepare enough because I understood Lily wouldn't be eating with us after she upset Tyler earlier." I froze, plate in hand. "What are you talking about? When did Lily upset Tyler?" Tyler, sensing an opportunity to be the center of attention, piped up. "She wouldn't let me see her drawing. She's mean." What had actually happened, which I had witnessed myself, was that Tyler had tried to grab Lily's handmade card for my mother, and Lily had politely asked him not to touch it because it was a surprise. There had been no conflict beyond that minor exchange. "That's not what happened," Lily said softly, her voice barely audible. "I just didn't want him to wrinkle the card I made for Grandma." My mother's expression hardened. Tyler doesn't lie. If he says Lily was mean, then she was mean. And in this house, we don't reward bad behavior. The dining room fell uncomfortably silent. Jessica stared intently at her plate. Andrew continued eating as if nothing unusual was happening. My father half rose from his chair, looking torn before slowly sitting back down. I felt a surge of emotions: anger, disbelief, heartbreak for my daughter, but most of all, clarity. This moment crystallized years of similar incidents, each one individually dismissible, but collectively forming an undeniable pattern of cruelty toward my child. "It's okay, Daddy," Lily whispered, her eyes beginning to glisten with unshed tears. "I'm not very hungry anyway." Those words broke something in me. I placed the empty plate back on the sidebar and began filling it with portions from my own plate. "Here, sweetheart," I said, placing the food in front of Lily. "You need to eat." My mother watched this exchange with thinly veiled displeasure. "You're spoiling her, Darren. This is why she's so sensitive. Andrew never coddles Tyler this way." I ignored the comment and encouraged Lily to eat. She picked at her food without enthusiasm, the joy of Christmas visibly drained from her small frame. The dinner conversation continued awkwardly around us. My father made valiant attempts to include Lily, asking about school and her art classes, but my mother repeatedly redirected attention to Tyler, prompting him to share stories about his kindergarten achievements and sports activities. When Tyler finished his heaping plate, he loudly demanded seconds. "I want more ham and potatoes, Grandma, and extra gravy." My mother jumped up immediately. "Of course, my precious boy. Anything for you." She loaded his plate with second helpings, even larger than his first, cooing about how wonderful it was to see him enjoy her cooking. The contrast was so stark, so painfully obvious, that I couldn't understand how everyone at the table was pretending it was normal. Jessica caught my eye briefly, her expression apologetic, but she quickly looked away. My father focused intently on cutting his meat into unnecessarily small pieces. "This ham is excellent," Mom Andrew commented, seemingly oblivious to the tension. "You've outdone yourself this year." "Thank you, dear," my mother beamed. "I used that special honey glaze recipe you like." As the meal progressed, Lily grew increasingly withdrawn. When she accidentally dropped her fork, making a small clatter against her plate, my mother sighed loudly. "Some children know how to behave properly at the dinner table," she remarked pointedly. Meanwhile, Tyler was allowed to talk with his mouth full, interrupt adult conversations, and even reach across the table for bread rolls without comment or correction. By the time dessert was announced, the special chocolate peppermint cake for Tyler and a generic store-bought apple pie for everyone else, I was mentally calculating how quickly we could leave without causing a scene. Lily had barely touched her food and was sitting with her shoulders hunched, trying to make herself as small and unobtrusive as possible. As my mother served Tyler an enormous slice of cake, complete with a side of ice cream, she bypassed Lily entirely, not even offering her a slice of pie. When I requested a piece for Lily, my mother replied, "Oh, I thought she wouldn't want any since she hardly ate her dinner. Besides, too many sweets isn't good for girls who want to stay slim." Lily was 9 years old and naturally petite. This comment about her weight was as unnecessary as it was inappropriate. I cut a slice of pie myself and placed it before my daughter, who thanked me quietly but didn't eat it. The dinner had become an endurance test each minute, stretching painfully as we waited for an appropriate moment to suggest moving to the gift exchange. When Tyler declared he was bored with sitting and wanted to open presents, my mother immediately agreed it was time, never mind that several adults were still eating. As we moved to the living room for what would prove to be the final straw in this painful evening, I placed my hand reassuringly on Lily's shoulder. She looked up at me with such trust that I silently vowed this would be the last time she would ever be treated this way in the name of family tradition. The living room had been transformed into what my mother repeatedly referred to as Tyler's winter wonderland. In addition to the 12-foot Christmas tree dripping with ornaments, there were animated reindeer figures, an elaborate train set, circling the perimeter, and stockings hung on the mantel, a bulging one embroidered with Tyler and noticeably smaller ones for everyone else. I didn't see one with Lily's name at all. "Present time," Tyler shouted, racing toward the mountain of gifts. Most had his name on them, creating a lopsided distribution that was impossible to ignore. "Let's have some order," my father suggested gently. "How about we take turns opening gifts?" My mother immediately countered, "Tyler's been so patient through dinner. Let's let him go first." This set the tone for the gift exchange. Tyler tore through package after package, revealing expensive toys, clothes from designer brands, and electronic gadgets. After each gift, my mother would exclaim over its perfection, while my father dutifully recorded each item in a notebook for thank you notes. Later, a practice I knew from experience was only enforced with Lily. After Tyler had opened at least 15 presents, my mother finally said, "I suppose we should let the others have a turn now." When Lily's turn came, she carefully selected the large, beautifully wrapped gift from my mother and father. She took her time removing the paper, folding it neatly beside her, a habit she'd developed after my mother had once scolded her for being wasteful with wrapping paper. Inside the box was a pink sweater with kittens on it, at least 2 sizes too small, and clearly meant for a much younger child. Lily, who preferred blues and greens and had long outgrown her fascination with kittens, smiled politely. "Thank you, Grandma and Grandpa." My mother barely acknowledged the thanks, already focused on Tyler's reaction to Andrew and Jessica's gift. My father at least had the grace to look embarrassed about the inappropriate present. "I have a gift for you, Grandma," Lily said, retrieving the carefully wrapped package containing the hand-painted silk scarf and her special card. She approached my mother with hopeful eyes. My mother accepted the gift with a distracted, "Thank you, dear," and set it aside without opening it. When Tyler thrust a store-bought card with his barely legible signature toward her minutes later, she made a production of opening it immediately, exclaiming that it was the most beautiful card ever, and showing it to everyone. "Aren't you going to open Lily's present?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Of course," my mother replied, reaching for the package with obvious reluctance. She unwrapped it carelessly, tearing the paper Lily had so carefully selected and taped. When the silk scarf emerged, she gave it a cursory glance. "Very nice. Did your father pick this out?" Before Lily could answer, Tyler interrupted with a demand to open more of his gifts, and my mother's attention immediately returned to him. Lily's handmade card remained unopened on the side table. I watched as Lily retreated to a corner of the sofa, her small hands clasped tightly in her lap. When I caught her eye, she attempted a brave smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then I saw it, a single tear sliding down her cheek, which she quickly wiped away, glancing around to make sure no one had noticed. That tear was my breaking point. In that moment, I saw the situation with perfect clarity. This wasn't a single bad Christmas dinner. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an off day for my mother. This was a consistent pattern of emotional abuse toward my child, and I had been enabling it by continuing to expose Lily to this treatment in the name of family harmony. I stood up, my movement abrupt enough to draw attention. "Lily, sweetheart, can you help me collect our things? We need to head home." Already my mother asked, not bothering to hide her irritation. "We haven't finished opening presents. Tyler still has so many to go through. I think we've had enough for one evening." I replied, my voice calm despite the storm of emotions inside me. "Don't be ridiculous, Darren. It's Christmas. You can't just leave in the middle of our family celebration." My mother's tone held the familiar note of authority that had kept me in line for decades. I helped Lily gather the few gifts she'd received and her coat. "Actually, we can. And we are." "What's gotten into you?" Andrew interjected, looking annoyed at the disruption. "You're ruining Christmas for everyone." I turned to my brother, meeting his gaze directly. "I'm not ruining Christmas. I'm protecting my daughter from being treated like she doesn't matter." My mother gasped dramatically. "How dare you?" After all I've done preparing this beautiful dinner, creating a perfect Christmas. Perfect for whom I interrupted, surprised by my own boldness. Perfect for Tyler, certainly, but Lily wasn't even given a proper place at the table. You're overreacting, my mother dismissed. Lily is fine. She's just too sensitive. Isn't that right, Lily? All eyes turned to my daughter, who looked terrified at being put on the spot. I placed a protective hand on her shoulder. Don't answer that, Lily. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. My father finally spoke up, his voice hesitant. Maybe we should all calm down. It's Christmas Eve, after all. Yes, it is Christmas, I agreed. A time for family love and making children feel special. I've watched year after year as you've shown blatant favoritism toward Tyler while ignoring or criticizing Lily. I've made excuses, looked the other way, tried to compensate. But I'm done. My daughter deserves better than this. My mother's face hardened. If you leave now, don't expect things to be the same. Actions have consequences, Darren. The threat was clear, but for once it didn't intimidate me. Yes, they do. And this is the consequence of how you've treated Lily. We're leaving. I guided Lily toward the door, gathering our coats and the few gifts we'd brought for others that hadn't been opened yet. Jessica approached quietly, pressing a small package into Lily's hands. This is from me, she whispered. Merry Christmas. My father followed us to the front door, his expression torn between concern and years of conditioned compliance to my mother's will. Darren, please, let's talk about this. We've had years to talk about it, Dad. Years of watching Mom favor Tyler over Lily. Years of you seeing it happen and doing nothing. The words were harsh but true. He reached out briefly, squeezing my shoulder. Take care of yourself. And Lily. We walked to our car in silence, the cold December air a shock after the overheated house. Once Lily was buckled into her seat, I took a moment to breathe before starting the engine. Are you okay, sweetheart? I asked, watching her reflection in the rearview mirror. She nodded, then asked in a small voice, Is Grandma mad at me? No, Lily. This isn't about you doing anything wrong. This is about adults not treating you the way you deserve to be treated. The drive home was quiet. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, emotionally exhausted from the evening. After carrying her to bed, I sat in our living room staring at the small Christmas tree we had decorated together. For the first time in years, I felt at peace with a decision regarding my family. I made hot chocolate, put on a Christmas movie at low volume, and wrapped the additional presents I'd been saving for Christmas morning. Around me, our modest apartment felt more like home than my parents' house ever had. At precisely 9:57, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Rent's due tomorrow. This wasn't just a reminder about the monthly rent I paid for the converted garage apartment attached to my parents' property. This was my father acting as my mother's proxy, reminding me of the power they still held over my life. The below-market rent had been a factor in my decision to remain in the area after my divorce, providing stability for Lily close to her school and friends. I placed the phone down without responding, a plan already forming in my mind. The time for allowing financial dependence to dictate my daughter's emotional well-being was over. The morning after Christmas dawned bright and clear. Lily woke excited to open the presents under our tree, the previous evening's distress temporarily forgotten in the magic of Christmas morning. We spent several hours opening gifts, making pancakes shaped like snowmen, and watching her favorite holiday movies. At noon, Lily's best friend Sophia's mother called asking if Lily could come over for their annual Christmas playdate. I readily agreed, knowing it would give me time to sort through the thoughts and plans swirling in my head. Did you have a nice Christmas with your grandparents? Sophia's mother asked innocently when she came to pick up Lily. Before I could intervene with a diplomatic response, Lily shrugged and said, Not really. Grandma forgot to give me dinner, and Grandpa didn't stop her, but Daddy made it better when we came home. The simple honesty of a child. Sophia's mother gave me a questioning look but tactfully changed the subject. As they left, I felt a surge of pride in Lily's resilience and her ability to recognize that the treatment she'd received wasn't normal or acceptable. Once alone, I checked my phone to find 6 missed calls from my mother, 3 from my father, and 1 from Andrew. There was also a second text from my father, sent at 7:30 that morning. Your mother and I have discussed the apartment situation. Given rising costs, we'll need to increase rent to $2,000 per month starting February 1st. This was double what I currently paid and well above market rate for the small converted garage apartment we occupied. The message couldn't have been clearer: submit to my mother's rules or lose our home. Rather than feeling panicked, I felt strangely liberated. The financial threat removed any lingering doubt about whether I was overreacting. This wasn't about Christmas dinner. This was about control. I was calculating our savings and monthly budget when my phone rang again. Andrew. You've really done it this time, he began without preamble. Mom's beside herself. Dad's been trying to calm her down all night. Hello to you too, Andrew. Merry Christmas. Don't get smart with me. You ruined Christmas with your dramatic exit. Tyler was upset all evening. I'm sorry if Tyler was upset, I replied, surprised to realize I genuinely meant it. My nephew was as much a product of this dysfunctional dynamic as the rest of us, but I'm not sorry for leaving. Mom refused to serve my daughter dinner, gave her an age-inappropriate gift she clearly put no thought into, and ignored her handmade present while fawning over Tyler's store-bought card. What would you have done if it were your child? Mom has her ways, Andrew hedged. You know how she is. You just need to manage her better. No, Andrew. I don't need to manage Mom better. I need to protect my daughter from emotional abuse, and that's what I'm going to do from now on. Emotional abuse. That's ridiculous. You've always been too sensitive, just like Lily. The fact that you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't happening. I'm done arguing about this. Tell Mom and Dad I'll be in touch about the apartment situation. I ended the call before he could respond, then turned my phone off. I needed time to think clearly without the family drama intruding. My friend Michael called on the landline an hour later. A colleague from work who had become a close friend after my divorce. Michael had been hearing about my family dynamics for years, and had often suggested I create more distance. I heard about last night, he said after I answered. Jessica called Allison. Allison was Michael's wife, and had become friendly with Jessica through various social gatherings. News travels fast, I remarked, not really surprised. Our community was small. For what it's worth, Jessica told Allison she thought you did the right thing. Apparently she's been uncomfortable with how your mother treats Lily for years. This was unexpected but validating. Thanks for telling me. It helps to know I'm not crazy. You're definitely not crazy. So what happens now? Jessica mentioned something about your rent being doubled. I explained the situation, including my determination to find a new place rather than continue the cycle of financial dependence and emotional manipulation. You and Lily can stay with us until you find something, Michael offered immediately. We've got the guest room, and Emily would love having Lily around. Emily was Michael and Allison's 11-year-old daughter, whom Lily adored. I appreciate that more than you know, I said sincerely. I might take you up on it for a week or two if necessary, but I think I can find us a place pretty quickly if I focus on it. After ending the call with Michael, I spent the afternoon researching apartments in our area and calculating our budget. The situation wasn't as dire as I'd initially feared. I had decent savings from my year-end bonus, and while apartments were more expensive than my artificially low rent at my parents' place, they weren't unaffordable on my salary. The next morning I returned to work grateful for the normalcy of my project management responsibilities. Around lunchtime, my assistant informed me that my mother was in the reception area insisting on seeing me. She says it's a family emergency, Jenny added, looking concerned. I doubted there was any actual emergency, but I couldn't ignore the possibility. I asked Jenny to show my mother to the small conference room where we held client meetings. My mother swept in wearing her full regalia of wealthy suburban matriarch designer coat, perfectly coiffed hair expression of righteous indignation. "You haven't been answering your phone," she accused before I could even close the door. "I needed some space to think," I replied calmly. "What's the emergency?" "The emergency is that you've upset the entire family with your behavior. Your father is distraught. Tyler keeps asking why you and Lily left so suddenly. Christmas was completely ruined." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I'm at work. If you've come here to demand an apology for removing my daughter from a situation where she was being actively mistreated, I'm afraid you've wasted a trip." "Mistreated," she scoffed. "You're being absurdly dramatic. This is what I've always said about you, Darren. You make mountains out of molehills, just like your daughter." "My daughter has a name. It's Lily. And no, I'm not being dramatic. You refused to set a place for her at Christmas dinner. You claimed there wasn't enough food, while simultaneously giving Tyler seconds. You ignored her handmade gift while praising Tyler's store-bought card. This isn't a one-time incident, Mom. This is a pattern." My mother's expression hardened. "I came here to give you a chance to apologize and make things right. Clearly, you're not ready to be reasonable." "I think we have very different definitions of reasonable, Mom. I notice you haven't denied any of what I just described. I don't need to defend myself to you. I'm your mother." She gathered her purse, preparing for a dramatic exit. "Your father and I have been more than generous letting you stay in the apartment at below market rate. If this is how you repay that generosity—" "I'll be moving out by the end of January," I interrupted. "You can rent the apartment to someone else at whatever rate you want." This clearly wasn't the response she'd expected. For a moment, she seemed genuinely taken aback. "Don't be ridiculous. Where will you go? You can't afford a decent place in this area on your salary." "I appreciate your concern, but I've already started looking at apartments. Lily and I will be fine." "This is about money, isn't it?" Her tone shifted suddenly. "If you're having financial difficulties, you should have said something instead of creating this drama." "This isn't about money, Mom. This is about respect. My daughter deserves to be treated with love and consideration by her family. Since that doesn't seem possible, we'll be creating some distance." My office door opened then, and my boss Barbara poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, Darren, but the client is on line 1. She glanced between us, clearly sensing the tension. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I assured her. "My mother was just leaving." Barbara, perceptive as always, nodded and withdrew. My mother gathered her belongings, her expression frigid. "This conversation isn't over," she warned. "Actually, it is. At least for today. I need to take this call." After my mother left, Barbara returned to my office. "Family trouble?" she asked gently. I gave her the abbreviated version of events. Barbara had met Lily at several company picnics and had always been kind to her. "Take whatever time you need to get this sorted," she offered. "Your projects are well in hand, and we can redistribute anything urgent." "I appreciate that, but work is actually a welcome distraction right now." Barbara nodded thoughtfully. "Well, in that case, I should probably mention that the Henderson project manager position has opened up. It would mean a 15% raise if you're interested. I was going to wait until after the holidays to mention it, but it sounds like it might be timely information." I stared at her, momentarily speechless. The Henderson project was one of the company's largest accounts, and managing it would indeed mean a substantial raise, enough to comfortably afford a nice 2-bedroom apartment in a good school district. "I'm definitely interested," I managed to say. "Thank you for considering me." "You've earned it," Barbara replied simply. "Let me know your decision by Friday." The following 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I accepted the promotion, found a promising apartment across town, and began the process of packing our belongings. Lily helped enthusiastically, especially when I explained she would have a larger bedroom in our new place. "Will we still see Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked one evening, as we boxed up kitchen items. I paused, considering how to answer truthfully without burdening her with adult complexities. "We'll see them less often for a while. Grandma and I need some time to work through some grown-up disagreements." She nodded solemnly. "That's okay. I like it when it's just us anyway." Her words were both heartbreaking and validating. My 9-year-old daughter had already learned that visits with her grandparents brought more stress than joy, a realization no child should have to come to. Moving day arrived on a crisp January morning. I had hired professional movers for the larger furniture, but Michael and several other friends came to help with the smaller items and provide moral support. We were nearly finished loading the last boxes when a familiar car pulled into the driveway. My father got out alone, his expression uncharacteristically determined. He approached cautiously, nodding to Michael and the others before addressing me directly. "Thought you might need an extra pair of hands," he said simply. "We're almost done, but thanks," I replied, unsure of his motives for coming. "Can we talk privately?" I nodded and led him to the small garden bench at the side of the property. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the movers load the last of our furniture. "Your mother doesn't know I'm here," he finally said. "She went to her book club meeting." I figured as much. "Darren, he faltered, then squared his shoulders. "I want to help with the move. And I want to say that I understand why you're leaving." This was unexpected. "You do?" "I've watched how your mother treats Lily compared to Tyler. I've seen it for years, just like you have." He stared at his hands. I should have said something, done something. Instead, I just tried to compensate in small ways, thinking that was enough. "Why didn't you ever stand up to Mom about it?" I asked the question that had haunted me for years, finally spoken aloud. 43 years of marriage creates patterns that are hard to break," he replied after a long pause. "Your mother has always been strong-willed. I found it easier to work around her moods than confront them directly. That was cowardly of me, especially when it came to how she treated you as a child and now Lily." The acknowledgement was both healing and painful. For years I'd wondered if I was imagining the favoritism, if perhaps I was indeed too sensitive as my mother often claimed. "It's not too late to change things, Dad. Maybe not entirely, but some damage has been done." He looked toward the house where Lily was emerging with her backpack. "She's a special girl, Darren. You're doing right by her." "I'm trying to." My father stood straightening his jacket. "Let me help with the last of the boxes. And I'd like to have your new address, if that's all right. I'd like to visit sometimes if you'll allow it." "I'd like that." We worked together to finish the loading, and for the first time in years I felt a genuine connection with my father, free from my mother's domineering presence. Before he left, I gave him our new address and phone number. "I'll come by next weekend if that works for you," he suggested. "Maybe take Lily to that science museum she's always talking about. She'd love that." The new apartment exceeded our expectations. Though smaller than the converted garage we'd left behind, it was brighter, newer, and wholly ours. A space unencumbered by family tension. Lily immediately set about decorating her room with her art supplies and books, creating a personal sanctuary. The first week in our new home passed peacefully. I began my new position, managing the Henderson project. Lily returned to school after winter break, and we established new routines free from the anxiety of potential interactions with my mother. Then the messages began. First came texts from my mother, alternating between guilt-inducing, "After everything I've done for you," and accusatory, "You've broken your father's heart." When I didn't respond, she escalated to voicemails, each more dramatic than the last. I saved them, but didn't return the calls, needing time and space to establish our new normal before engaging. Andrew showed up at my workplace the following week, catching me as I left the office. "This has gone on long enough," he declared, blocking my path to the parking lot. "Mom is upset Dad is withdrawn. You need to apologize and fix this." Fix what exactly? I asked, maintaining my calm, despite his confrontational stance. The fact that Mom has consistently mistreated my daughter, or the fact that I finally stopped allowing it? You're exaggerating as usual. Mom has always been good to both of us and our kids. That's simply not true, Andrew. Mom has favored you since we were children, and now she's doing the same with Tyler over Lily. The difference is, I'm not going to let my daughter grow up thinking that's normal or acceptable. So what, you're just going to cut off the entire family, deprive Lily of her grandparents and cousin because Mom didn't set a place at Christmas dinner? Talk about an overreaction. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that Andrew had never experienced our mother's dismissive side. It wasn't just Christmas dinner. It's been a pattern throughout Lily's life. And I haven't cut anyone off. Dad is coming to take Lily to the Science Museum this weekend. He's welcome in our lives, as long as he respects my boundaries about how my daughter is treated. This information seemed to surprise Andrew. Dad's been visiting you. He didn't mention that. Maybe because he knew how you or Mom would react. Look, Andrew, I'm not trying to divide the family. I'm simply protecting my daughter and teaching her that she deserves respect. If Mom can acknowledge the favoritism and commit to treating Lily fairly, we can work on rebuilding the relationship. Mom doesn't need to change anything. She's been nothing but generous. Then we'll continue as we are. I need to go pick up Lily from her after-school program. Andrew stepped aside reluctantly. This isn't over, Darren. Families should stick together. I agree. But real family supports and respects each other. That's the example I want to set for Lily. As weeks turned into months, we settled into our new life. My father became a regular visitor, sometimes bringing small gifts for Lily, but more importantly, giving her his undivided attention. They developed a ritual of Sunday afternoon outings to museums, parks, or bookstores, special time that Lily treasured. My mother remained conspicuously absent, refusing to visit our apartment or acknowledge our new boundaries. Instead, she sent occasional texts demanding we return for family gatherings as if nothing happened, clearly unwilling to address the underlying issues. Easter approached traditionally, another major gathering at my parents' house. Instead of subjecting Lily to another potentially hurtful situation, I decided to host a small celebration at our apartment, inviting Michael's family and several of Lily's friends from school. The morning of our Easter gathering, an unexpected knock came at our door. I opened it to find Jessica standing there alone, looking slightly nervous. Hi, Darren. I hope it's okay that I stopped by. Of course, come in, I invited, genuinely pleased to see her. Despite being married to Andrew, Jessica had always been kind to Lily. Once inside, she explained that she'd told Andrew she was going shopping but wanted to speak with me privately. I've wanted to talk to you since Christmas, but it's been difficult with Andrew and your mother constantly discussing how unreasonable you're being. I can imagine, I replied dryly. The thing is, Jessica continued, lowering her voice, though Lily was in her room. I've noticed the same treatment of my daughter Claire that you described with Lily. This was the first I'd heard about Jessica and Andrew having a daughter. Claire, I didn't realize you had a daughter. She's 4. From my previous relationship, Andrew adopted her when we got married, but your mother has never really accepted her as a real grandchild. She's always excluded from the special treatment Tyler receives. Suddenly, many things made more sense. Jessica's uncomfortable expression during family gatherings, her quiet support when we left on Christmas. I'm sorry, Jessica. I had no idea. No one does. Andrew doesn't see it or chooses not to. Your father tries to compensate like he does with Lily, but she trailed off, then straightened her shoulders. Seeing you stand up for Lily gave me courage. I've started pushing back when your mother excludes Claire, and Andrew and I have been in counseling. We talked for nearly an hour, sharing experiences and strategies. Before leaving, Jessica asked if she could bring Claire to meet Lily sometime. I think they'd get along well, and it would be good for Claire to have a cousin who understands. Absolutely. You're both welcome, anytime. This conversation with Jessica marked a turning point in my healing process. Knowing that I wasn't alone in recognizing my mother's behavior, that I wasn't too sensitive or dramatic as I'd been told throughout my life, provided profound validation. The months that followed brought many changes. Lily flourished in our new environment, her confidence growing as she realized she was valued and respected for exactly who she was. She began participating more in school activities, made new friends, and her artwork won a district-wide competition. I started dating again cautiously at first, then with more confidence as I worked through my own family of origin issues with a therapist. My relationship with Emma improved as well, with more open communication about co-parenting Lily and mutual support for each other's life choices. Through it all, my father remained a steady presence, visiting regularly, and even standing up to my mother on occasion, according to his careful reports. Andrew and I maintained a distant but civil relationship, primarily connecting through Jessica, who became an unexpected ally and friend. My mother remained the only unchanged element steadfastly, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing or consider how her behavior affected her grandchildren. But whereas once her disapproval had dominated my decision-making, now it had become merely background noise, growing fainter with each passing month. 1 year after the Christmas dinner that had changed everything, Lily and I prepared to celebrate the holiday in our apartment. We had established our own traditions, decorating our tree with handmade ornaments, baking cookies to deliver to neighbors, and volunteering at the local shelter on Christmas Eve morning. "Can we invite Grandpa for Christmas dinner?" Lily asked, as we hung stockings on our makeshift mantel. "Of course, sweetheart. Would you like to call and invite him yourself?" She nodded eagerly, taking my phone to make the call. Their relationship had blossomed over the past year, built on mutual respect and genuine interest rather than obligation. On Christmas morning, as Lily unwrapped her gifts with typical care and appreciation, a knock came at our door. I opened it to find my father standing there looking somewhat nervous, a large gift bag in his hands. "Merry Christmas," he said. "I hope it's not too early." "Perfect timing. Come in, Dad. Lily's been waiting for you." He entered, embracing his granddaughter warmly before presenting her with the gift bag. "I picked this out specially for you, Lily Pad. No help from Grandma this time." Inside was a professional-grade art set, exactly what Lily had been hoping for, along with a certificate for art classes at the community center. The thoughtfulness of the gift brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you," Grandpa, Lily exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. "It's perfect." As we shared our Christmas dinner, a simple but delicious meal we had prepared together, my father cleared his throat awkwardly. "I need to tell you both something," he began. "Your mother and I have been in counseling since September. It was my ultimatum after she refused to acknowledge the issues with how she treats Lily and Claire." This was unexpected news. "How's that going?" I asked carefully. "Slowly. She doesn't like hearing that her behavior has been harmful, but she's listening at least sometimes." He looked at Lily, who was attentively following the adult conversation. "I want you to know, Lily, that how your grandmother has treated you has never been your fault. Never. And I'm sorry I didn't do more to protect you sooner." Lily considered this solemnly before responding. "It's okay, Grandpa. You're doing it now." Her simple forgiveness brought tears to my father's eyes. "Yes, I am. Better late than never, I suppose." "Will Grandma ever come visit us?" Lily asked the question I'd been carefully avoiding. My father exchanged a glance with me before answering honestly. "I don't know, sweetheart. Grandma has some things she needs to work on before that would be a good idea. But I want you to know that doesn't mean she doesn't love you." "It's okay if she doesn't," Lily replied with surprising wisdom. "Dad says we can't make people love us the right way. We can only decide who we spend our time with." My father nodded, visibly moved by her maturity. "Your dad is a very wise man." The year since that fateful Christmas dinner had brought numerous lessons, some painful, others liberating. I'd learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish but necessary for protecting those you love. I discovered that family isn't defined by biology, but by consistent love and respect. Most importantly, I'd realized that breaking generational patterns of favoritism and emotional manipulation wasn't just possible but essential for Lily's well-being and my own. My promotion had led to further career advancement, providing us with financial stability independent of my parents' assistance. Lily had thrived in her new school environment, developing confidence and resilience that amazed her teachers and friends. My relationship with Emma had evolved into a healthy co-parenting partnership based on mutual respect and shared priorities for our daughter. Even my relationship with Andrew had begun to improve largely due to Jessica's influence and his growing awareness of our mother's impact on our family dynamics. While we weren't close, we had established a cordial relationship that allowed our children to know each other. The only relationship that remained unresolved was with my mother. She continued to refuse any acknowledgement of her behavior or its impact, insisting that I was tearing the family apart with my unreasonable demands. My father's counseling ultimatum had been a surprise, but her participation seemed more about maintaining appearances than genuine change. I had come to accept that reconciliation might never happen, at least not in the way I once hoped. But I had also learned that forgiveness didn't require reconciliation. I could release my anger and resentment toward my mother without allowing her continued presence in our lives to cause harm. As we finished our Christmas meal, I looked at Lily, confident, kind, and secure in the knowledge that she was valued exactly as she was, and knew without doubt that every difficult decision of the past year had been worth it. Dad, Lily said suddenly, "Can we take a picture with Grandpa to put on our wall? I want to remember this Christmas." "That's a wonderful idea," I agreed, setting up my phone camera. As the three of us smiled for the photo, I realized we were capturing not just a moment but the beginning of a new family legacy, one built on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine love, rather than obligation and fear. Later that evening, after my father had gone home and Lily was asleep, I sat looking at our Christmas tree, reflecting on our journey. The path hadn't been easy, but it had led us exactly where we needed to be. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family to protect yourself or your children? What helped you find the courage to stand firm when others pressured you to maintain harmful dynamics for the sake of family? I'd love to hear your stories and insights in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize emotional well-being over family expectations. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the strength to create the loving family environment you deserve, whether with family of origin or family of choice.